This government was elected on the promise that we would secure a fair deal for Alberta. From day one, we got to work, fighting for more autonomy, better representation, and a renewed respect for Alberta's significant contribution to Confederation. These goals were reinforced by the Fair Deal panel, whose 2020 report made several recommendations affecting nearly every ministry within government, the government of Alberta. My Ministry of Justice and Solicitor General was no exception. The panel recommended the creation of a provincial police service to replace the RCMP in Alberta. I was not surprised to see this recommendation. Indeed, it was right in line with what I heard over and over again this summer at the town hall sessions I conducted in rural communities across Alberta. From High Level to Carlston and Vermilion to Barrhead, I crisscrossed the province this summer, listening to Albertans on my rural crime tour. Let me be clear, Albertans have great respect for the hard-working frontline RCMP members who put on the uniform every day to keep our communities safe. The enormous frustration many Albertans have is with the RCMP's bureaucracy, the staffing levels in rural detachments, the transfer in and transfer out of experienced officers, and the fact that our provincial police is ultimately controlled by Ottawa. Surely, they told me over and over, there has to be a better way to police the province. A made-in-Alberta solution that could be both more efficient, cost-effective, and more responsive to the challenges of policing in rural communities and the particular needs of their residents. But there are many questions around the idea of Alberta establishing its own provincial police. How would such a police service be organized? How long will it take to make the transition? And how much will such an undertaking cost? Today, we have before us the results of the PricewaterhouseCoopers independent study into this matter. Thanks to their hard work over the past year, we now have a much clearer picture of the operational requirement, process, steps, and potential cost of creating our own provincial police service. And while the challenges are not insignificant, we believe that a made-in-Alberta provincial police service is worth serious consideration. In fact, a provincial police service will be able to put more boots on the ground at a total cost equal to or less than the total cost for the RCMP. PwC has proposed innovative and progressive approaches to public safety that could tackle the root causes of crime. By incorporating mental health and social workers into the provincial police to address addictions and mental health calls for service, especially in rural and indigenous communities. The model developed by PwC also addresses a long-standing concern of many communities in Alberta, that they don't have enough say in setting local police priorities and ensuring that the RCMP is meeting the needs of their community. PwC is proposing the establishment of local police commissions that will make the provincial police service more accountable to Albertans in their communities instead of answering to Ottawa or being controlled from Ottawa. These are just a few of the thought-provoking concepts in PwC's proposed policing model. This is a good time for me to emphasize that we are dealing with just that, proposals. Let me be clear, this is not a done deal. Your government has made no decision whatsoever about whether to replace the RCMP with our own provincial police service. Taking such a consequential step requires much more analysis and consultation. We have many discussions ahead of us during which municipalities, First Nations and Métis communities, law enforcement organizations, victim services groups, and rural crime watch associations will all have their voices heard. There will be detailed consultations with stakeholders. In considering this proposal, my department will travel the province to ensure all municipalities, First Nations, and other relevant stakeholders are consulted. I will also personally meet with stakeholders to hear the important perspectives they have and use their feedback as we give this excellent report the consideration and study it deserves. Albertans will also get a chance to weigh in through a public survey in early 2022 as we welcome their critical feedback. What we hear would help us refine the concepts that PwC has presented and inform our decisions about further study. I look forward to consulting with a wide range of stakeholders and hearing their views and ideas contained in PwC's report. I want to emphasize that this process in no way is meant to denigrate the men and women who make up the RCMP. They are dedicated, highly trained, and hardworking professionals who have earned a place of respect within our communities. They deserve and have our tremendous respect and gratitude. As Justice Minister, I have always defended our hardworking frontline men and women of law enforcement, and I can assure that I will continue to do so. However, I, as Justice Minister, and this government will always pursue the best interests of Alberta and of its people in all of our decisions. Our ultimate goal will always be to build safer communities for all Albertans, no matter where they live. Thank you. May God bless our beloved province, and may God bless the people of Alberta. I will now take some questions.
We'll now go to the phone line for some questions. So it'll be one question, one follow-up. Operator, first question, please.
Thank you. The first question is from Ashley Joanno, Post Media. Please go ahead.
Hi, this is obviously a question for the Minister. Minister, you say that the cost to Alberta would be equal or lesser to the cost now, but that's just not true. Moving to a provincial police force means that Alberta would lose out on nearly $200 million in federal funding. Why did the report in question not consider how Alberta would make up that $200 million, especially considering the Premier has already promised municipalities that they would not pay more?
I have always been clear that if we decide to transition to a provincial police service, that it will not cost municipalities more than they are currently paying. But I think what is going on here is that we must remember that we have to compare apples to apples. All in, if you look at the overall cost that we as a province spend on our CMP and the overall cost it would require us to establish our own provincial police, at the end of the day, I am confident that it would be at the same amount or lower than what we currently spend on our CMP. But let me also add that as a province, we do have a responsibility beyond the monetary implications to defend and pursue our province's best interests. Ontario have done this, Quebec have done this, Newfoundland and Labrador have done this, and I think the time has come for our province to do the same.
Follow-up?
We're still talking about $200 million that the province would have to make up somehow. Can you tell me how the province would make up that money? Would taxes have to go up? Where would that money come from?
No, the taxes will not go up. As I have always said, the province of Ontario, the province of Quebec, and Newfoundland and Labrador have got their own provincial police service. And I think the time has come for the province of Alberta to do the same for the best interest of our province. And at the end of the day, I am confident that the cost for establishing the provincial police service will be lower than the cost that we currently incur for RCMP.
Next question.
Janet French, CBC.
Hi there. Thanks for taking my question. Partial follow-up to Ashley's. You said that the cost of rural policing to municipalities would not go up, but do you mean the share for municipalities are paying or the actual dollar figures that municipalities would pay?
Well, I think right now the municipality, some municipalities pay about 70%, some 90%. And the federal government kicks in about 30% in some or 10% in others. I have been clear that what they contribute right now, obviously other than the normal adjustment that goes with salaries and things like that, there would not be increases to what they currently pay. And I am confident by the time you compare apples to apples, the current cost of RCMP in our communities and what it would cost us to provide the provincial police service in those communities, by all in, based on this report, it is going to be more cost effective.
Follow up?
Yeah, I just want to talk about the projected timeline, which is looking at about 6 years. What is the point of no return? Do you really think you're going to be in government 6 years from now to see this through?
Janet, at the end of the day, I trust the people of our province to determine their own government. I've always had faith in Albertans to determine our future. Ultimately, whilst I am here, my goal and the oath of office that I took is to pursue what I consider to be in our province's best interest. And that is what I have sought to do from day one.
Next question.
Sherry Nareen, Win Speaker.
Hi, Minister. Indigenous groups that PwC consulted with for this report said fulsome consultations were required to look at policing Indigenous communities. What will those fulsome consultations look like with you?
So, great question. I have been clear from day one that it is important for me for all of our Indigenous communities and leaders to be fully consulted on what this would mean to their communities. Ultimately, we want to partner with them. We want to collaborate with them to ensure that their communities are safe. And I have directed my department to begin that particular effort. You would see consultation beginning from November up until early next year, and there will be full consultation with our Indigenous partners.
Follow up?
Question. Why are you assuming Alberta Provincial Police Force will have a better relationship with Indigenous people than the RCMP does, considering the relationships the Ontario Provincial Police and the Sûreté de Quebec have with the Indigenous population in their provinces?
Simple. We are going to work with them. We are going to sit down with them to figure out the policing priorities of their communities that is culturally sensitive, in line with their expectations of safety and overall well-being of their people and their nations. At the end of the day, this is a decision that we are going to make together. The model that is going to suit them, that they would want to see, is going to come as a consequence of this consultation and collaboration. And ultimately, at the end of the day, once they give their go-ahead, that will be in the best interest of their communities and indeed for the province.
Next question.
Sheila Skolsky, CTV. Your line is open.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Go ahead, we can.
Yes, okay, sorry, Minister, asking something unrelated to what's being announced today in regards to whether or not your department has been involved in any way whatsoever with the Ariella Kimmel lawsuit directed towards the Premier's office.
Listen, sexual harassment of any form or type should never be accepted or acceptable in our society. And I can assure that, this is the case in this particular instance. As you know, I am the Justice Minister. This matter is before the court. And it would be inappropriate for me to comment on matters that are before the court. But I can assure that we are taking this matter very seriously, and no society, none of us. I am a father of 2 girls. I will do everything in my power to keep them safe.
As a follow-up, I guess, when did you first learn of any of these concerns or rumors of anything happening, and what concerns do you have of incidents of sexual harassment or severe intoxication happening inside the legislature offices?
As I said before, I am the Justice Minister. This matter is before the court. It would be inappropriate for me to comment on a matter that is sub judice.
Next question.
Kelly Kreiderman, Global Mail.
Good morning, Minister. I'm just wondering how you can consider this an apples-to-apples comparison of the finances for a police force when the report from PwC doesn't even address the issue of the federal money that will be lost.
Yeah, it is apple to apple in the sense that the PwC report looks at the overall cost of the RCMP right now, the current state in our province, to what it would cost for us to stand up our own provincial police. I understand there are interest in that 30% or 10% that the RCMP, that the federal government contribute to policing in our province. But ultimately, all in, as I said before, when you take a look at the operational structure of the RCMP based in Ottawa and where the depot in Saskatchewan, and the fact that ultimately we are going to have the opportunity to set up a depot here for the training, for the recruitment and training of our own provincial police officers. All in, that is more cost effective than the cost we spend on RCMP today.
Follow-up?
Yes, I hear you, but as you go into communities and make the case for a provincial police force, as it seems you're keen to do, don't you think some communities will question why a major component, funding that makes up 30% of the cost of policing right now, isn't included in a report that is supposed to look at the financial implications of moving to a provincial police force system? Don't you think it's sufficient to go to communities without having that information?
I don't think so. The federal government contribution to the province and municipalities on policing is a matter of public record. We know what the percentage is, as I said before, 30% or 10%. We know what that comes to in actual hard dollar values. And that is why between July and September, early September, I traveled across all regions of our province, listening to municipal leaders, stakeholders, and ordinary Albertans. And this matter came up, and I respect that. And I have been clear from day one that there would not be an additional cost on their budget as a consequence of making this transition. The provincial government of this province, like that of Ontario, Quebec, Newfoundland, and Labrador, is well suited to deal with matters of that particular nature.
We'll now go to our last question.
Thank you. Tim Brooks, CTV.
Yeah, I just kind of want to go back to what everyone's talking about surrounding that federal subsidy. I mean, I understand you're saying it's going to be more cost effective. You haven't really explained how. So can you kind of walk us through exactly how that missing $170 somehow makes a force that maybe has a discrepancy in $40 million in this report more cost effective? Are you saying this is going to be something long term? And if so, how long will it take before I guess things even out?
So if you take a look at the report outlines models and what those models would mean. The PwC report have come forward with innovative and progressive approaches to policing, and that combines new technology, combines mental health and addiction workers, social workers, in responding to calls in our various communities. Right now, law enforcement, RCMP, police officers in this province get to respond to virtually every single public safety calls, regardless of their nature. And the current structure do not have an inbuilt process to utilize the skills of those professionals. And ultimately, this is one thing that has been reflected in the models that PwC have put forward. Second, don't forget that just recently, the federal government and the unions negotiated an agreement whereby they will see their salaries increase by 23.7% and back pay going back to 2017. We have to also factor all of that in, plus the humongous cost of administering RCMP that operate right here in Alberta from Ottawa. The cost of training RCMP officers in a different province before being deployed. In this province, we are constantly having to deal with the problem of transfer in, transfer out. All of that have their consequences on our budget and the cost of policing. Again, when you take it all together, all in, I am confident that this is going to be a more cost-effective. But at the end of the day, it's going to take a while. This is going to be, should we decide to proceed, it will be a phase-in approach. And all of those costs will be realized in making sure that the recommendations and the findings of PwC's report remains true.
Follow-up?
Yeah, you mentioned the new CBA there, and you did mention, this is a pretty hefty pay raise for some Mounties in the country. How are you going to hire these new positions? How are you going to hire for this provincial police force when salaries may be more competitive outside of province, and when the RCMP is already currently having a difficult time filling vacant positions?
At the end of the day, it comes back to safer communities, making sure that law enforcement is ever closer to the people and the communities that they serve. That is what this means for me. Plus, as I said before, Ontario is responsible for their own police service. Quebec does the same. Newfoundland and Labrador have got a mix. And if those provinces can establish their own police service and pay for them, I have no doubt that Alberta is well suited to do the same. Third, we have municipal police services. If municipalities with their own police services can afford to pay, right now, many municipalities pay more to the RCMP. And if they can afford to do so, I am confident that the province of Alberta can afford to pay comparable salaries and wages. But at the end of the day, I go back to what I said before, when you put them all in together, it will be more cost-effective for this province to establish their own provincial police. But more than anything else, it is important that I make this particular point. As Justice Minister, I took an oath to defend our province's best interests. And ultimately, this is also part of that calculation.
Thank you very much.